We recently saw the Bybit hack. Theoretically, would it be possible to train AI to pull off a hack of that size?
I mean, the hack was social engineering,
Yeah.
and that's definitely possible. It can become very real very quickly.
Mhm.
So I definitely think this is a possibility. It's also something that kind of keeps me up because I am somewhere on the Duma spectrum as well. So I do see the dystopian potential of AI.
Welcome to this episode of Building Useful Shit, where we essentially are diving into everything HumanAIx. Now, if you guys aren't too familiar, recently the OddTech team had unveiled their new program in Hong Kong, where essentially they have a number of different founding members that are part and parcel of this really cool program that helps and aids building out the entire decentralized AI space in general. Now, in today's episode, we have with us Oasis Protocol. And from Oasis Protocol, we have Marko Stokić, who's essentially the head of AI over there. Thank you so much, Marko, for joining us today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Look, I wanted to quickly jump into things with regard to HumanAIx because our audience that are watching are not too familiar and they want to sort of understand things a little bit more in detail. But before I actually jump into that, I have a question for you more in line with what Yerne, your co-founder, had mentioned very recently in a tweet. And I caught this because I thought it was quite brilliant and I wanted to hear your thoughts on it in general. He says that if it's not open source, it's not backed by a decentralized KMS, audited with a reproducible build running in a trusted execution environment, periodically attested on chain, then it shouldn't be trusted. What are your thoughts here?
I mean, difficult to disagree with our founder. What Yanni is kind of hinting at or very directly addressing is that currently the hype on Twitter or crypto Twitter is definitely trustless agents. So how do you build unruggable agents? And the initial answer for most is, hey, you just host the agent in a TE. And for those that don't know, TEs are trusted execution environments. That's kind of the core tech that the whole Oasis network is built on. Specifically, all of our nodes, they run Intel SGX CPUs. So those create a TE. That's where you do smart contract execution. That's how we get privacy on chain. But what Yanne is kind of explaining is, hey, it's not enough to just host it in a TE. There's way more stuff. You can host any code in a TE, but this can also be malicious code. So if just because it's in a TE doesn't mean it's secure. So that's where we are building kind of the most secure, most decentralized solution out there. So we have a decentralized key management system. Lots of these agents, they will be audited. We are also providing these building blocks. So you can kind of imagine it as Lego pieces. So you can take it's already been audited, it's approved. So you use this because this is one feature of your agent. And then you build some others, those you need to audit, but you don't always need to do the full kind of verification. And since TEs, the magic of TEs is that they provide remote attestations that kind of become these cryptographic proofs that guarantee that this execution of the code was done correctly. You also need to be able to check these remote attestations. Best case, you have an explorer specifically for these. You can check if the attestation is valid, and you have also the possibility to reproduce the builds. So with every we call it Ruffle. With every Ruffle app that you build, you have these compose files, and those are the ones that you can use to kind of rebuild this image of the application to see, hey, that what's actually running in the TE is the same application that was initially kind of composed.
That's amazing. In fact, thank you for that. I know you guys are currently involved with building so much out there in terms of DeFi, GameFi, AI, data tokenization. I guess my real question over here was, as one of the founding partners for HumanAIx, which Mike Robinson at his event had described as first of its kind, tangible open infrastructure protocol for decentralized AI. How is Oasis Protocol involved in all of this, and how are they adding value here?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we've been in discussion with Ort for quite a while and also with some other members of the Alliance.
Mhm.
And when Jimmy and team kind of approached us and were like, hey, we have this alliance in the works. We think you guys could fit in very well. We're like, hey, of course, let us check it out. And when we saw it, it did instantly click. Like what we do is we provide infra to do confidential compute, amongst other things. Confidential compute, funny enough, if you go to CoinMarketCap and check the definition of confidential compute, that's written by me. So it's definitely something that we know and we have been doing for quite a while. And confidential compute is also incredibly important for decentralized AI, because what's new in decentralized AI is that you very often utilize someone else's compute. So you have your own model if you want, you have your own data, but you don't have all of the hardware resources. So you send the compute request to someone else, or you get access to their compute hardware, you do the compute, you get some results back, but this whole actual compute part is a negative black box. So it's a black box, but in a negative sense, because you can't verify that what was done was actually done correctly. And it's not private at all. And for many of the cool use cases and many of the kind of traditional Web2 use cases like healthcare, you really do need privacy.
Yeah.
And that's where we kind of fit into the ecosystem. We're like, hey, anyone that wants to build something that requires confidential compute, you can come to us and we will provide it to you.
Lately, we've been seeing so many different discussions around open source AI and closed source AI. And I was actually reading an article just the other day, and I'd come across this one writer where he was discussing about how different tech giants like Meta and Microsoft, they keep describing their AI models as open source per se, while also failing or unwilling to disclose some of the information about their underlying tech or whatever the case may be. I want to sort of understand, as since HumanAIx is an alliance that is building towards a decentralized AI, how does that do it differently from what's already out there? Just wanted an understanding to that.
I mean, great point, because it's definitely a discussion that's still ongoing, like this open source versus closed source. Obviously, I am an advocate for open source.
Absolutely.
But as you say, it's not enough to just put it open source. Like Facebook's or Meta's models, Llama, they are open source. Anyone can utilize them, but no one actually knows what kind of data they were trained on. So that's something where the HumanAIx alliance differentiates, because the idea is to have full verifiability within the whole kind of AI development and usage chain. So while building AI models or AI tools, you will have verifiability of the data that was used, of the compute that was used, etc. Best case, it is also kept private. But then also, while users then utilize tools, they will kind of have the tools to verify that everything was done correctly. It's still in the works. So,
I came across a couple of discussions on a few different platforms. Happy to share those sources as well with you after this, where they were discussing, topics in regard to ethical use. I guess my question over there is, how is HumanAIx sort of working around something like that? Or is that even a topic of discussion, when it comes to ethical use or safety or whatever the case may be?
Yeah, I'd have to think a bit longer about it. So the initial response would be, this is generally the argument of closed source proponents. They're like, hey, we should not be making all of the news models public because it's dangerous. If it's like a very powerful model, suddenly everyone has access to it.
That's true.
And that also means those that want to abuse it, they can.
Right.
But honestly, I think it's very flawed. You can't just stifle innovation and access to these tools. I mean, we saw what happened with big tech for the past decade. They built these massive data silos. It was impossible for anyone to compete with them. And also just with open source, we see any model that is out there open source, it gets way more testing, it gets way more scrutiny. People just figure out very quickly on what the problems with it are, what are some inherent biases of the model. So it actually increases AI safety because you have way more people kind of playing around with it and testing it. Regarding the alliance per se, I think where it helps is regarding fair data usage. So that's something that currently even open source doesn't really address. Like, if my data is in a data set, it's in there. Like, I can't do much. I won't profit from it. There's no way for me kind of to have any incentive to participate in it. And that's something where quite a few decentralized AI projects are kind of tapping into. They want to address this because honestly, that's the thing where crypto was always great at, incentivizing users to share things. Like, that's how we reach consensus in blockchains. People kind of from Bitcoin's day one were participating with their own compute.
Right.
Of course, it wasn't GPU compute, but it was actually mining for the network. And similarly here, like you can very well use blockchains to incentivize people to share their data. Then it's just a matter of like, hey, how do I actually incentivize or reward them properly whenever this data is reused? And then in these massive foundational models where you pre-train on 10 terabytes of data on everything that's out there publicly on the internet, and you have this base model, and then you kind of fine-tune on top of it. Still not solved. I think everyone in the alliance is kind of interested in seeing solutions for this.
Right.
And once there, I think it's very big, because in a system where you know, hey, if I participate and I give up some proprietary data, some data that's not publicly available, I can get rewards continuously, not just for this initial, hey, I sold my data, but now my data is part of this model. Whenever this model does something, I will get some rewards.
Right. Yeah, I mean, something you just said, and I'm sort of going off script over here. Something you just said sort of caught my attention with more in line with being incentivized. And I think that's something that, the overall, audiences that are interested in finally exploring the decentralized AI space, that will definitely be a pull factor. I guess my question in that aspect of things is, how would something like that work? Like, I know for a fact that, if I'm using something like ChatGPT, I don't get incentivized for the data that they collect while I'm using their platform. How would that differ when it comes to decentralized AI or something like HumanAIx?
So, yeah, that's a great point. And it's still something that no one has properly figured out, because we haven't benefited from it, right? I would participate. What currently works very well is that you have incentives to participate in, for example, data labeling, or you kind of give up your data and you get some rewards. Many actually use crypto for this because payments are just so very easy. But what you actually need for the full-fledged solution is new, even kind of like file methods, frameworks, where you have the open source model in a GitHub repo with a current state, and you know all of the data that's in there that was trained on. And whenever this repo is, for example, used, or this file ending is used, the user instantly gets some payments.
Right.
It's very complex. I know Sentient is working on this, and they have raised tons of money, and still it's quite a way to be usable. But their approach is definitely the closest one I have seen, where you can very well kind of track changes in base models and reward users whenever those models are used.
I have a fun question for you, Marko, and probably my last two before we wrap up. We recently saw the Bybit hack, and I was thinking about this, and I was like, theoretically, would it be possible to train AI to pull off a hack of that size?
I mean, the hack was social engineering.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like very cracked developers hacking the code. It was actually just social engineering. And that's definitely possible. I mean, we see these AI companions, these AI girlfriends, and those are convincing, even though it's not their goal, but they managed to convince people that they're real. And we saw also the negative effects of this. I mean, we had teenagers kill themselves because they thought their AI girlfriend was asking this of them. So it can become very real very quickly. So I definitely think this is a possibility. It's also something that kind of keeps me up, because I am somewhere on the Duma spectrum as well. So I do see the dystopian potential of AI. And what people keep saying are like, when it gets too powerful, we're just gonna pull the plug. But who's gonna pull the plug? It's gonna be, it's first, it has to be human. So if AI is already at this level, it's also very imaginable that AI also manages to convince humans, hey, you're my friend, I'm gonna spare you when I become all powerful. Please give me access to X, Y, Z, etc. So this manipulation part of humans is definitely relevant. I don't know if it's going to be something that happens more and more regarding like massive crypto hacks, but just theoretically, yes, it is possible.
Wow, that's Terminator Skynet vibes right there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not that many steps away. Like, yes, I know it's crazy, it's sci-fi, but Let's hope we don't go that route, but it's definitely one possible future that is on the map.
I want to sort of reel it back and come back to the whole HumanAIx experience over here, just for the sake of our audience. We all know that we are sort of, this alliance is building in the direction of decentralized AI. And, early on, you did mention, with regard to certain challenges that you all would eventually face, or you guys are as an alliance trying to overcome. What are those, and what do you see as a roadblock that needs to be worked on so that we can even move further when it comes to decentralized AI?
There's tons of building blocks actually in the alliance. So that's why we have numerous partners here, everyone providing expertise in their specific part. So it's this whole ecosystem. It's not something that one project can solve.
Absolutely.
Decentralized AI was always this collaborative effort. So someone needs to or provide this validation layer. Someone, of course, needs to build the computational layer. Someone needs to provide verifiable data, new kind of access to proprietary data. It's this whole economy where all the participants currently are trying to kind of provide the best that they can. As I said, I'm still curious to see how it's going to turn out once we have some kind of more collaboration and something live, because even theoretically it sounds difficult, but that's why it's worth trying to do it. Just because it's so difficult, it's not like, hey, yeah, everyone, let's focus on their own thing. We will continue to do confidential compute. You do data provisioning, you do hosting, validation, etc. We should be combining these efforts and provide the kind of full solution to anyone that wants to build this kind of future of decentralized AI. I know, not a very satisfying answer, but if you ask me again in a couple of months, I'm sure it's going to become way clearer for me and
Absolutely.
anyone.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for that, Marko. In fact, I really appreciate all the time that you've given to us just to, answer these questions and help our audience out there understand a little better what HumanAIx is all about and what you guys are trying to accomplish. So thank you so much for joining us today once again, Marko. Really appreciate having you on the show. If you guys did gain a lot of value out of this and you all did enjoy what we're trying to do with building useful shit, do tune in for future episodes and continue watching. Stay tuned.